Yeah.
Blizzard founder releases 2 bangers. Now he's laying off staff.
Turns out those ex-Blizzard developers are having quite a fight, but unfortunately for them, that fight is against the economy. So let's get into things. Sunderfolk is a relatively new game that just sold 62,000 copies. That is not enough copies to recoup its money, and
Ooh, 62,000 copies, that's it? That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Mike Morhaime, the Blizzard co-founder who left to make Dream games free from corporate interference, has now had to do the bad thing. He's now had to announce layoffs in Dreamhaven's publishing wing. And sadly, he is not alone. The exodus from Blizzard Entertainment was quite massive.
Maybe I'm a horrible person for saying this. I don't feel bad for people having to lay off their staff when their product is just not performing. The reality is, if your product performs, you can keep all your employees. So you kind of do have to make an internal investigation and figure out who was the actual bottleneck there.
Once Warcraft designer turned Riot MMO lead Greg Street founded Fantastic Pixel Castle. You've got Tim Morton of StarCraft launching Frost Giant Studios, Chris Kalecki, a veteran Warcraft designer, creating Notorious Studios. And those guys are just the beginning. The whole made by ex-Blizzard devs kind of became a marketing pitch. It was the promise of veteran talent
or the first, second generation Blizzard employee. He's getting flopped.
Very badly.
Along with his career and personality.
Finally free from Bobby Kotick. You know, free to create. And some of those people did find success. Theorycraft Games landed their MOBA, Second Dinner, of course coming from Ben Brode of Hearthstone fame. They kind of crushed it with Marvel's Snap, but others have not done so well. Imaginary Studios went through layoffs before they even launched. The same happened to Lightforge Games. And then, most recently, Uncapped Games cancelled Battle Aces less than a year after revealing it.
Damn.
This is pretty rough, and you'd expect some failures just based on probabilities alone. But Dreamhaven was supposed to be different. They had Mike Morhaime. Morheims are pretty rich. They also had many of the biggest names from Blizzard. Yet here we are today, recording this video.
Well, this just shows that it doesn't matter how big of a name you used to be. If you provide a product that no one wants or no one is interested in, your name doesn't mean anything.
So let's get into it. You know what drives me kind of mad? Walking out of a video planning meeting with pages of scribbled notes that may as well be hieroglyphics. Half the action items missing, and by the time I decipher what I've written, I've kind of forgotten the context. And this is where today's sponsor, the Plod Note, has become essential. It's an AI note taker that's the size of a credit card, and it magnetically attaches to my phone. And quite simply, when I'm in a meeting, I just click to capture everything, and that means I'm not thinking about taking notes, I am actually present with my people. And using the Plod instead of my phone means no phone battery stuff, no storage warnings, no...
No, me, I would be too lazy to even press the button.
Bro, same.
Plus, it's probably a thing you need to charge. Yeah, that's not happening. The battery is gonna die once, and I will never see it again.
No call interruptions, none of that, and I get pure, nice focus, no distractions. Now, after the meetings, Plod automatically transcribes everything. It generates structured summaries with action items that I can share with the team, and the Ask Plod function they've got is brilliant. You can actually query across all of your meetings. As an example, I could say, what did Jared say?
If this thing can decipher my train of thought, it honestly would deserve an actual research grant.
About the lore timeline changes in Warcraft Chronicle Volume 4, and it will go and fetch that. So basically, it's a second brain that remembers context. And privacy matters, obviously. Plod uses end-to-end encryption, and it meets SOC 2, GDPR, and HIPAA standards. Your data stays yours. The device itself has 30 hours of non-stop recording with 64 gigs of storage, so it easily handles my entire week. And at $159, this is paid for itself with recovered time in basically...
$159? Okay, I'm out. Too rich for my blood. Wait, why am I commentating on a sponsored ad? I need to put a lid on my yapping.
No time at all, and you can check it out at plod.ai/bellular, because when you're doing important work with people, your brain should be focused on them and on creativity, not stenography. It's a big, big win. Back in May, we talked about Dreamhaven's fairly consumer-friendly approach. You see, their role-playing game Sunderfolk used the free-to-share model, the idea being that one person could buy the game and then 4 could play it. Just like
Oh,
how you'd buy a board game to play with your friends. And
okay.
at the time, we hoped this would help.
Yeah, I mean, like it does sound consumer friendly, but I check out games quite frequently, and this game maybe crossed my eyes like once. Is it possible that one of the big reasons is it literally just didn't grab attention? People who play games and they just didn't understand what the market at the moment even wants from a game? Like just the most cliche basic market research.
Help it grow and find a sustainable niche, even if that niche was small. But it seems the niche was too small, and that hope is now kind of dashed because Bloomberg
Yeah, wait. That looks like a game I play. That actually does look the games I like I play, but it doesn't pique my interest. What's the game code that I play? Like when you are promoting a game, first of all, I need to check why it's mostly mixed reviews now. I need to check what's happening. But when you are promoting a game, when I'm looking at their game in this game, I see a lot of similarities, right? A dungeon crawler, like board game look-alike. What's the difference? Why would I go with their game instead of this game? What would be the reason of me going away from this game to get their game? Just because if I buy the copy for my like 3 of my other friends can play it?
reported the numbers. At the end of August, Mike Morhaime told staff the truth that Sunderfolk had sold just 62,000 copies. But that's not the only bit of bad news. Their July release, which was Wildgate, a Sea of Thieves arena-style spaceship game, well, it only sold 130,000 copies. Now, for loads of games, 130,000 copies is awesome, but obviously not if you're working at Dreamhaven scale, and certainly not if you're mostly doing that with American talent, as opposed to the emerging trend of having a small core team and then outsourcing the shit out of everything that you can. You know, looking at you, Space Marine 2.
I look
for
so
example.
bad.
Wildgate even had cosmetics and battle passes, but just look at the Steam numbers, guys.
Oh.
They started low, kept dropping, and Mike Morhaime's messaging was fairly blunt.
Oh man, this is sad. This is brutal.
Holy crap.
So, they need to stop relying just on their name because majority of people don't know who you is. That's the reality. You know how little people look into who actually made the game they like?
The quote, "Our monthly expenses are outpacing revenue." That's never what you want to hear your boss saying, and the new focus for the company is, quote, "urgently reducing costs," which is also never the thing you want to hear. And then came an admission. We are committed to Dreamhaven surviving through this. Now that's good for Dreamhaven. That's good for loads of people at Dreamhaven. But that does mean people are going to be losing jobs, and that specifically meant layoffs in the publishing wing. In early September, Mike Morhaime posted on LinkedIn about these cuts, and the core claim is that those were made to protect Wildgate and Sunderfolk. Development continues unaffected, according to PC Gamer. Wildgate was set to launch its China server with NetEase on September 24th. They're still planning multiple seasons of content, and the reason why is that from Dreamhaven's perspective, they're not making bad games. The problem is actually bigger than that.
Yeah.
What they're doing is trying to survive in one of the most hostile versions of the games industry we have ever seen.
What?
Remember our Silk Song video? In that, we talked about developers doing everything right, but still failing. And Dreamhaven does actually fit that mold quite well. You have...
Is this another thing of blaming the customer or something? Yeah, this is why you're supposed to make something actually eye-catching. It's like the same level of being mad that like streaming is oversaturated, so that's why you never grew. There are like different aspects you can approach and tackle unless your product is just not there. Maybe I'm thinking into it too deep, but I feel like you cannot just like simply make a blanket statement of like, oh, it's the industry, it's the consumers.
small teams, clear scopes, dedicated releases, no egregious monetization, and they were making games in proven genres.
It doesn't, but even from first glance, it doesn't look good. It looks weird and clunky. Like all the genres they're doing, I'm actually a consumer of those genres. I wouldn't buy this.
This is not a studio that failed to deliver good video game content. People who played their games actually did like them. Obviously, that's quite the contrast with Frost Giant and Stormgate, which I also do have to talk about. And Bloomberg says that they are potentially facing layoffs and revenue problems, which, to be honest, yeah, is completely expected. Look at the Steam scores, and we will actually cover.
It sucks. I do feel like a lot of genres in gaming do need more competition, but like, if the consumer is not receptive, what are you supposed to do? You need to just tighten the belt and make a better product.
Cover Stormgate properly in another video soon. But Steam reviews do show a key difference here. Players are mixed in Stormgate, so maybe it makes sense that game hasn't caught on. But Dreamhaven's games
That flatlined.
are unanimously liked by people. It's just there's not enough people playing them. And here's the wider problem. These companies formed around a core idea that ex-Blizzard veterans could deliver great games, and that because those games would be so great, made by these veterans, that you would get scale and you would get financial success. But what's happened to those people is that the market has changed dramatically from under their feet over just a few years. And this isn't really just about new IP or independent studios. I mean, look at Expedition.
So basically, they didn't adapt to the changing landscape of gaming, and they have no grasp of what people want.
33. That is a pitch of, developers who left AAA to make a passion project actually working and still resonating, even without an established brand to help them stand out. I mean, that's clearly not an essential thing, but what is essential, apparently,
I mean, it did. Okay, with Expedition 33, one person who left Ubisoft, it did give them quite a bit of a boost, because at that time when they were marketing Expedition 33, Ubisoft was going through one of the most historically humiliating moments in gaming, where Ubisoft completely lost all of its face in front of their own customers. So it kind of, for Expedition 33, it kind of did help them that one of the people who founded the studio that made Expedition 33 used to work in Ubisoft. It gave them extra eyeballs, especially amongst like content creators, and it just spread like wildfire. And it ended up being that the game was actually pretty good, so people kept on going and playing it. They had a little bit of a luck with them. It also played a huge factor that the game was good.
is standing out in one of the best years for games ever. Expedition 33 did that, but as we covered in this video about a game with an eerily similar development backstory, shows not all of them did. And we're left in a position where these developers bet that their veteran status would kind of help them stand out. That just hasn't really worked out. Now, I want you to think about demographics. Younger players don't care about ex-Blizzard credentials. People like me might, but not new players. And meanwhile, the game's prep.
I'm sorry, but if I see like ex-Blizzard employees, it doesn't really scream to me I'ma buy it. Because for me, like, my memory of Blizzard is so solid with everything that's going on there that it wouldn't mean anything to me.
And now I know that for a lot of people that came off as a good thing. Those damn journos have finally got what's due. There's a little bit of a side problem though. There's very few people working in games press now. Like, legitimately, it is tiny. Now, it is the case. There's people like me, on YouTube and stuff. But it's not just that it's tiny. A lot of those people have got to chase news, and they've got to chase things like guides, because that's what brings in money.
I have no respect for game journals, especially on like website mediums. Most of the time, I feel like they haven't even played the game, even though it says like, oh, I played 40 hours of this game, so let me go on a random tangent of comparing it to modern politics. If anything, I would just watch like a gaming channel that just plays games to get my review on a game. There are so few of them because we don't trust them. Exactly, yeah. What are the best game reviewers? Just gaming channels. Just go and see if they're actually having fun with it.
money for their lovely corporate owners. So that role of the press in finding interesting games, interesting development stories, and basically surfacing that to readers, that has kind of went down. Now, what is good is, YouTube, Twitch. Loads of people discover new games through creators there, which
Yeah.
is great. But even with that, creators are drowning in new releases. And
Well, right now there's also an epidemic of friend swap games, which is a little misleading when content creators are playing it because content creators usually play it with other content creators or friends, which automatically just makes it funnier because they're used to being in front of people and amp up the fun and make it look fun. So when a person who maybe not necessarily have a specific circle of friends to play games like that, they will go into it and feel completely disappointed in it.
everyone's kind of chasing trends. And that basically means you can launch a good game and have nobody notice. And the most dangerous side effect here is that publishers are really cutting their losses. Obviously, everything comes back to funding. Both Dreamhaven and Frostgiant have got the same problem where their spending is exceeding their revenue, and that's after their games have came out. But some developers don't even get that chance. Bloomberg have a report containing dire news for Greg Street.
Oops, I dropped something off my desk.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I need to grab it though. Be right back.
Okay. Yep.
And the thing, it rolled all the way under the desk. My bad. The only developers I have been following to wherever they go is the ex Witcher 3 developers. The reason why is because the game they're working on is actually looking great. And the game they're working on is actually filling the vacuum of what's to come after Witcher 3. That's the only reason I actually do follow them.
Fantastic Pixel Castle. Now, they're making a fantasy MMO. There's direct lineage to, of course, Greg's work on Warcraft. Now, NetEase promised them $100 million in funding, but now reportedly they're lowering that figure. Now, NetEase did deny this to Bloomberg. They said the budget understanding Bloomberg had was,
I mean, if that's the demo they provided to the investor, I would be also like, I don't know about that one. But there's a lot of MMORPGs that are dropping right now and dying off quickly because they're not fun.
inaccurate. But here's what's strange. Greg Street followed all the right trends with a small team and heavy outsourcing of cost-efficient development. So in theory, everything was being done correctly there. Yet, the contents of the Bloomberg report are what they are. And why
But is it followed properly in theory when you're doing the technical aspect correctly, like lowering the cost of working on it and you're following trends? But what if when you're working on it is the trend of the forefathers? And what I mean by that is the trend at that time, and by the time you release it, it's not the trend anymore. And on top of that, you're not providing anything new in the game. You're just chasing the mechanics of the previous games. So what makes you stand out? Why should people leave the game you're copying to play your game? There is such a thing as trends in gaming. You do need to also offer something new and exciting.
while NetEase may deny that, we can just look at what NetEase have been doing in general. You see, this happened right as the company started their creator preview campaign, and there's quite a NetEase pattern of reducing overseas investment after luring developers from secure positions. That may seem like me saying a bunch of words, but there's been a trend, it's happened with ex-BioWare studios as well, where NetEase do appear to fund studios and then pull that funding really goddamn quick. And that's leading us into a dire place, because in the ideal world,
Well, I don't want to defend NetEase. NetEase has its own like skeletons in the closet. I think it's also misleading to say that they are leading the developers out of their companies because the investors they do have the right to pull funding if the game that they're working on doesn't look acceptable. Like granted, I'm not a fly on the wall that was present during the meetings, but from what I've seen, it doesn't look good.
These people get their sort of veteran dev status by putting in the work, and then they go off and they do their own thing. And that's supposed to be the type of what you would call creative destruction that happens in a market that drives innovation, because that veteran dev, they might be working in World of Warcraft, but maybe they don't like the direction it's going in. Maybe they think, you know what, I can actually do something more interesting. And that's how the incumbents of today get defeated by the new incumbents of tomorrow. But that's not really what's happened here in the games industry, is it? What's happened is a lot of those veterans have left, but then their companies have crashed and burned. And that's all happened whilst the games industry is in an investment drought. Now, at the same time, and at the other end of the scale, funding for indies and funding for AA projects is, by all accounts, at a real low point. And that basically means we're really in a pickle here. And not just in a way where a few games may be disappointing. I mean this in a way where the actual industry is becoming way less healthy. And the idea that, the rug can be pulled before a game can even find its audience is spooky.
Okay, maybe it's just information that I don't have and maybe Ballura has, but with the rate of games, especially from indie, that are dropping and succeeding, doesn't look like there's a vacuum of funding for indie games. It just seems like investors don't just invest in every single indie game. And as for like higher than indie games, same. It doesn't feel like there's an investment vacuum happening, because there's a lot of games in the development right now that has foreign investment. They're just not out yet because they're currently in development. So this is just kind of confusing me.
It's depressing, but the risk is kind of simple. Because by the time these games release, the market might not care. And we have so many examples of the market not caring. Because what are most people doing? Playing Fortnite. They're playing Roblox. They're playing the same 10 games that they've been mostly playing for the last 10 years. We literally have hard data to back that point up. People buying new games isn't as normal as it used to be. That means the games...
But doesn't this go hand in hand with what I said earlier? Because something that replaces them, that provides more entertainment, hasn't been provided to us. There's just no game that takes our attention from those old and gold games. This goes hand in hand with what I said. Like, as soon as you provide something that is as interesting, as entertaining, and as like just makes you want to come back, like, people are gonna jump ship. It's not like there's some club of loyalty when it comes to games.
Industry is changing, and what we're left with today is, I think, not what those Blizzard veterans thought they would be dealing with whenever they decided to go off to new pastures, find new funding, and try to do some cool new shit. So, Dreamhaven are doing layoffs, Frostgiant are probably going to have layoffs as well. There are other stories of, the ex-Blizzard devs haven't gone great. There's loads of similar stories coming from ex-BioWare developers, and I could go on and on and on through this video. And what it all does is it builds on something that we've discussed earlier this year on this channel.
So, okay, let me just bring up what BioWare is working on. So that way no one misunderstands why I'm saying this. One of the biggest and most anticipated franchises that are completely flopping: Dragon Age, Mass Effect. Are you really not understanding why BioWare is also laying off people? It's not lack of funding. They had funding up the wazoo. It's not lack of... Well, it is it's a massive lack of research, that's for sure. So this video is just kind of confusing me. I guess it is a very biased video with fraction of information. Like, if we go by the example he literally just provided as an example, BioWare, right? They're not tanking of lack of funding. If anything, they had more funding than most games that succeeded.
There is no single games industry anymore. Not like there was 10 or 15 years ago. In indie or AA spaces, audiences can exist to support.
Alright. The decline also occurred despite the end of console GPU shortages in mid-2020. Okay, Diablo 4, flop. Starfield, flop. Zelda, Nintendo. Final Fantasy was a success. Hi-Fi Rush was a it was more like a fad. Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, it's a COD game. Pikmin, fad. Fortnite, Cyberpunk, people are still playing it. It was successful, but it did start as badly produced. Alan Wake, no one's talking about it. Hogwarts was a successful game. Baldur's Gate, the last Baldur's Gate, was a successful game. Spider-Man 2, even though the developers kind of screwed the pooch with running their mouth and, you know, all that other stuff, it was still a successful game. Street Fighter, the developers lost faith with their own consumers. Honkai Star Rail, a gacha game that has a massive player base.
15 years ago. In indie or AA spaces, audiences can exist to support those games. And I think
Okay, Lethal Company. I'm pretty sure some people still playing it. Valorant, big company, and it was a fad, but it kinda got its own place in gaming now. Manor Lords, I don't really hear people talk about it much. Genshin, super successful game. Elden Ring, super successful game. Black Myth Wukong, game journals tried to bury it. It still was a successful game. Guerrilla Attack, oh, I'm not talking about that one. Helldivers, people who are behind Helldivers almost tanked it. Power World, Nintendo is trying to tank it, still successful though. Marvel Rivals, successful even though game journals also are trying to push a narrative about it.
me and my team, and probably the audience of this channel, are actually in that indie AA and a bit of AAA space. We're part of that audience, but we're comparatively small. Expedition 33 could win Game of the Year. It might sell 4.4 million copies if it's the most successful game of its type. Most indies or AA's won't sell half of that. They won't sell a tenth of that. Expectations have to drop. New studios need smaller budgets. They need different plans for today's market. And here's the tragedy.
How many copies did Silksong sell? Let's see, approximately 4 million. So right away we have an indie game that sold 4 million copies, so or around. It has around 6 million downloads and around 4 million copies sold. So indie games, they can achieve that. What about Expedition 33? Sold around 4.4 million copies. It reached around 3.3 million sales within 33 days of release.
Their games released. And the hope for them is that they can course correct without losing all of their experience. Make no mistake, they'll lose much of it, but hopefully not all. And I say hopefully because, frankly, we cannot afford to lose these veterans. Not permanently.
Some veterans should leave the gaming industry. BioWare veterans, they're obviously out of touch. Blizzard veterans, they're obviously out of touch. There's a lot of veterans who they might have knew what the audience wants at that point of time when they were at the top, but they don't know anymore. So just because you're a veteran doesn't mean you should be held to some high honors or something. For example, look at the Capcom guy we recently talked about, ex-Capcom guy, who last game he worked for Capcom was in 90s. And journalists are still quoting him as former Capcom developer. Even though, what, 2 decades passed, more than 2 decades passed. And now he's trying to step into the ring and push some bullshit about Power World. Some veterans absolutely should step out of the gaming industry or just hold a position where they don't have creative input.
The games industry and games as a medium actually needs people with experience. The problem we faced is that the industry is doing an awful job at supporting and fostering that experience. And yeah, that might suck for them, but you know who it also sucks for? You. Because it means you.
No, absolutely not. I have more games to play than I have time. Right now, I'm struggling to figure out time to finish Digimon, the new one that dropped, ranking up in Marvel Rivals, leveling up in Final Fantasy 14, going back to World of Warcraft, and there's like finishing Lord of the Fallen, finishing my runs in Diablo 3. I have more games than I have time. Going back into Pretty Derby. Then there's a new Resident Evil game dropping. Then there's Ninja Gaiden dropping in like a week. I have more games to play and more games I'm looking forward to play than I have time. And that's not even bringing in indie games into play. I have Aeon 2 I'm looking forward to next year. I have the World of Warcraft expansion I'm looking forward to. I have Dawnwalker I'm looking forward to. Like, there's literally more games than I have time. The gaming industry is absolutely not cooked. It just, the gaming industry is filtering out and spitting out people who don't want to progress with the times, or people who don't think that the customer should have a say in what kind of product they're purchasing. That's all that's happening.